you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Sarah and thank you so much for joining me today. Today I want to talk about Love After Lockup, specifically Scott and Lindsay, and I'm just gonna say I totally saw this coming. I've been talking on my Instagram for weeks that I think Scott is totally overselling how wealthy he is. And it seems to be that he's not even an entrepreneur. There's a whole lot of holes in his story and a whole lot of seemingly fraud that Lindsay uncovered in this last episode of Life After Lockup. So let's jump right in. So Scott and Lindsay made their debut on last season of Love After Lockup, and there was several touching aspects to their story. So Scott and Lindsay met on online. I can't recall if it was a prison dating website or if it was Facebook or something like that. But anyways, they met online. They'd been talking for 2 years. Scott actually uprooted his life from New York, upstate New York, down to Mississippi, where he bought a house, and we'll talk about that later, to await the release of Lindsay. And in the meantime, he was getting to know Lindsay's family. He was spending time with her mom, with her daughter, Miley Grace. He was actually financially taking care of Miley Grace. He was buying her school clothes and things like that. He spent holidays with them. And honestly, for me, I had high hopes for them. I thought he seemed maybe a little bit kooky and eccentric, but I thought he had good intentions. Come to find out that looks can be deceiving. One of the things I found interesting, even to begin with, was that they were even going to be on Life After Lockup in the first place. Part of me felt that they did this weird thing where they had this 4-part like little mini season of Life After Lockup in the middle of last season of Love After Lockup. And it kind of felt that they just ended that season of Love After Lockup and just kind of mashed everything together with like a new season of Life After Lockup. That's kind of what it felt like to me. One of the things that I found interesting was we kind of knew based on online chatter, things Scott had posted on Facebook, that they weren't together anymore. And it was highly suspected, and now it's been confirmed that Lindsay's actually back behind bars. So Scott had this to say on his Facebook page on December 10th regarding these newer episodes of Life After Lockup. So he said, "I know I'm going to get bombarded with questions and such regarding the final episodes of the show coming up. Most of you know I'm really not at liberty to discuss much, but what I will say is very similar to the Tara Bell scenes and several others. I was not privy to, present, or even aware of some of the scenes and conversations during the filming of the show by design. From this point forward in the show, my relationship with Lindsay was for all intents and purposes over, and I'm by no means perfect, but I chose to handle myself one way. She chose to handle herself another way. That's all I can say, guys." I mean, for me, I didn't really expect a whole bunch from Lindsay. I didn't get the vibe from them meeting at the airport that she was romantically interested in him at all. It seemed pretty obvious to me from the get-go that this was a relationship based on financial security, which on the one hand, I didn't necessarily blame her for. If she could find a safe environment, there's no criminal activity environment that her daughter could grow up in, and if they had a good relationship, then I mean, to each their own. We see relationships like that all the time. So, I mean, on the one hand, while maybe she was scamming Scott, if he was well aware of the situation, then really that's on him. But let's talk about some of Lindsay's less than honest actions. So first there was Lindsay's poems or diary entries, or I forget what exactly she called them. Scott had uncovered a notebook that contained writings in them, and it was all about women in prison scamming men for money. This really upset Scott. He confronted Lindsay about it, And she made the claim that this was actually just what she would do to pass the time while she was incarcerated was read books and then just copy excerpts from the books. A lot of us thought that that was total BS, but I do believe that someone did find that book online, so it could be true. Who knows? The other thing that was really like, come on, is so Miley Grace could not come over because Lindsay was required to quarantine for 14 days upon her release from jail. Well, this made sense to a lot of us, but then Lindsay has her friend Tarabelle come over, and we learn that Tarabelle is actually more than a friend. They've had a romantic relationship for many years, and the plan is to actually move Tarabelle in her camper onto their property. A lot of people were like, why are you letting Tarabelle come over, possibly exposing you to the virus when you're not even letting your own daughter come over, which you've had many fights with Scott about the house not being ready, mainly because it's not fit for Miley Grace to come live in. Now let's talk about Scott. One of the things that always perplexed me is he was called a 51-year-old entrepreneur from upstate New York, and he uprooted his life, moved him and what I can only assume would be his business down to Mississippi. Well, a couple things never really jived with me. One is, what kind of business are you in where, unless it's like online commerce or something, that you can just not be where your businesses are and that you can work that remotely. That I had questions of. I did some cursory Googling to try to find out what kind of business he was in, and I couldn't really find anything. But what I did find is that in upstate New York in 2015, he was actually working as a CPS officer. So that's a Child Protective Services caseworker, I'm sorry. And it's alleged that while he was employed as a caseworker, he pursued an inappropriate relationship with an adult female client in the city of Mechanicville. And in that process, it says, quote, he did commit an unauthorized act of his official functions. He was arraigned for this. This was a misdemeanor. This happened in 2015. I didn't, do any super deep dive. So I'm assuming that the case has been not solved, but like handled. There's been some sort of judgment. He ended up resigning from his position with CPS, and he's no longer employed by Saratoga County. So, a CPS worker is obviously a very noble profession, but it is not an entrepreneur. So to me, that is a misrepresentation. Like, what is he doing for money at this point? I have no idea. So clearly I wasn't the only one thinking that not everything was adding up with Scott, because Lindsay, in this last episode of Life After Lockup, decided to do some digging on her own, and let's take a look at what she uncovered.
Why not go through it? Because in my opinion, if you're looking for something that somebody's hiding, it's because you're hiding stuff yourself. Delinquency. What the pay bills. Jesus Christ, this is $1,000 past due. Utility bill. Delinquency notice on the phone. Locker lease purchase. Guess that's the house. Mississippi residential lease agreement. I thought he bought this house. My letters. I found photocopied letters from family and friends that had wrote to me in prison and that I had saved and brought home with me. Well, this is a letter that I got from an ex-boyfriend like a week ago that was in my things. I didn't even notice it was missing. Holy. This is a letter that somebody had written to me and passed to me to sell while I was in the shoe. Hey, how are you? Is this the millionaire? Are you an escort? Yes, I am an escort. I thought I knew who Scott was, and I just had no idea. Oh my God.
So clearly Scott has misrepresented how wealthy he really is. According to Lindsay, I don't know if he explicitly stated or just made it seem like he was in the millionaire range of wealth. but clearly he's not. Lindsay uncovered delinquent bills. She found out that he didn't even buy the house that they're living in, that they're actually renting the house. He's also, and this was really creepy to me, he photocopied letters that I don't even know how he came into possession of these, but he photocopied letters that were written to Lindsay, or that Lindsay had written to other people, so they had nothing to do with Scott. And he had like a big collection of them. He also had a huge collection of her social media posts that on his computer, and she made the joke like, no wonder his computer is running so slow. She also found an old phone that she went through and discovered that Scott had been soliciting sex workers. And so she had discovered that as well. One of the things that kind of broke our heart, or pulled at our heartstrings, is that we found out in last season of Love After Lockup that Scott did lose his son tragically in a car accident. And part of me gets the feeling that this situation that led to him losing his job with CPS, and even getting into a relationship with a felon, is that he has this sort of savior complex that he needs to feel like he's, I don't know, lifting someone out of a bad situation. And I don't know if he's trying to overcompensate because of the loss of his son, but I do kind of get a vibe like that. Though things that are really unsettling when it comes to Scott is that he seems to really pry into Lindsay's personal life, things that go above and beyond even looking through her phone, which, I mean, I just think that's like an overstep as well. But he actually went so far as to messaging like ex-boyfriends on Facebook. He did go through her personal belongings and found that journal or that diary, and then these photocopies of personal letters that were written to her or that she had written to other people. That is just a huge invasion of privacy. So to me, there is something super dark there, super creepy, and it just really rubbed me the wrong way. Ultimately, I think we expect for the felons on this show to misrepresent themselves, or to not be in it for purely the right reasons. We've come to expect that. We do seem, and maybe this is wrong of us, to expect a little bit more out of the non-felon, or the, I don't even know what to call it, the non-felon. That maybe they really are in it for love or companionship or what have you. I feel like Scott is probably one of the biggest misrepresentations on the show. I think he is a bigger scammer than Lindsay, and I'd be really interested to hear what you guys have to say about that. So let me know down in the comments. You guys make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Reality Squad. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and as we approach the holidays, I hope everyone is just surrounded by positivity and good vibes. And stay safe, wear your masks, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, you guys, take care. Bye-bye.